Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special session of Board of Education. Today's date is March 2nd, 2026, and I'm calling the meeting to order now at 5:40 p.m. In the event of emergency, please note the exits that are clearly marked here in the room. At this point in time, in attendance at the meeting is myself, Board President Lisa Johnson, First Vice President Juan Leon, Second Vice President Chris Nearing will be coming shortly, and trustees Leslie Kretz, Carol Seehoff, and Megan Messman. Also in attendance is our superintendent, Dr. Gina Talbot, our assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, and our director of human resources, Dr. Landau. Also here is our legal counsel, John Sheen, and our district clerk, Marianne. At this point in time, we're going to be entering into executive session at 5:41 p.m. for a particular person's employment history, as well as advice from counsel. We have a motion to enter into that session. So moved. Second. Carol Seehoff is Leslie Kretz first. Carol Seehoff is second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We anticipate resuming open roughly around 6:30. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Zoom open now at 7:02 p.m. And a motion for agenda item 381, please. Second. Christina is first. Carol Seaworth second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Have a motion for agenda items 382, please. Christina is first. Carol Seaworth is second. Any discussion on this item?
But the item was suspension of policy, which will say you're leaving along with the policy suspended.
Okay.
Can you talk louder, please?
So
There's no mic.
at this point in time, in regards to the suspension of the policy 9240, you want to address it, Dr. Towers?
So with policy 9240, it states that an interim position must go through the entire hiring process, meaning it would go through the first round hiring committee, and then the interim position would then proceed to the second round, which would be the superintendent and cabinet, and then to the board. I'm recommending that this policy be suspended for the purpose of appointing an interim employee tonight so that seamless operations of the business office can proceed forward.
Any questions on this?
Comments, Madam President. I urge you and my fellow colleagues to not suspend policy 9240. This is a policy that's here for our protection. It's a policy that we worked on as a board in order to vet, hire the best and bring the best to Amityville. There's a reason why we put it in place, and I would urge the board and my fellow colleagues to not suspend this policy.
Thank you, Ms. Leon. I'd just like to say that the Board of Education in most districts, there in regards to interim personnel, the reason that it is interim for that particular reason is that there's an opportunity, there's usually someone that needs to be replaced very quickly. So if we have to go through the hiring process at this point in time, it'd be roughly close to maybe 30 days before we potentially be able to get someone in this position. So that's why I believe it's important to, at this point in time, just suspend this policy of an interim, because we need to get a business official in here as soon as possible.
So I would say just on this topic before we take the vote that I too am hesitant to ignore the entire hiring policy. We did have an impromptu interview of sort. But we have made a point that we want to at least see 2 candidates. Whether or not we went through the entire hiring policy with multiple rounds of interviews, is something that we could have discussed further as a board. There would have been a little bit of time to accommodate in last week, this week, to ensure that we would have had the two candidates that we've been discussing. Without going through maybe all levels of what is currently specified in the hiring policy, a sort of hybrid approach, not just a full rescinding of the policy.
I think also just to note that, that the. Actually, I can't, so I can't say what I want to say. There's just, we went through. We know that there's limited number of individuals who are qualified for the position. There are a limited number of individuals who would be available for the position. So I believe instead of taking the, instead of taking the time to go through the process. We got recommendations from individuals as well, so I think that was discussed in executive session, so I do hear your point, but I feel that we are in a position where we need to appoint someone for this position so we can move forward with our budget process. We're in the middle of our budget process right now. We're scheduled to do a line by line on Saturday. We need to have someone in place to get this done, and if we were to take the time to bring in 2 people, 3 people, we don't have that opportunity at this point in time. I believe that we are in a position where we have someone who's well qualified, he's seasoned in what he needs to do. And I feel that it's extremely important that we do suspend this policy of 9240 in terms of going to an interim. Because we need to go ahead and appoint, as I stated before, never before in this district do I recall having an interim to go through the process of a hiring committee, because for a particular reason, when it comes to an interim, typically you need someone right away. And if you need someone right away, you don't have that opportunity to go through the whole process. I do hear what you said in terms of not going through the whole process, but I just feel that we need to move forward. We need to move forward and definitely suspend this policy. It's extremely important. So therefore, we can go ahead and put a consultant in place so we can continue with our budget. And that's extremely important. We're at a point in time in this district that we don't have that opportunity, that time to wait any longer. We have to put someone in place.
And then just in that regard, having that we're on the policy committee, if we need to revisit this policy, I think we should. If we need to clarify, because it's the first time I've heard that you point out that the interim is in this policy. Well, it is in the policy, we will adopt the policy. So if we need to tweak the policy, then let's make that a priority, because as I'm realizing this could happen any day with any position. And so, rather than being in a position where we have set rules and guidelines, and we're now saying, well, no, forget about those rules and guidelines, because we have to react, let's at least try to prepare and mitigate so that we have a clearer path forward. Of what we would expect in a situation like this.
And we've already discussed about doing a permanent, search for a permanent.
We did just discuss an executive session that we would want to, as a board, put out for a permanent position.
And we all identified with the fact that this is an extenuating situation.
Yes, it is, but it's not that we couldn't have waited a few more days, to do some level of interviews.
And council.
I do respect your opinion, but a few more days would have brought us to like Thursday or Friday. We have a budget meeting, we have a meeting on Wednesday. And we also have a little line by line on Saturday. So if we push it off for a couple more days, it would not give that person ample time to potentially be prepared for the meeting on Saturday. And we would have delayed that.
And then have to adjust the meeting.
Right, then
We would have to adjust the
right, but then again, we would not be on track to get our budget to the community in a timely fashion that we had wanted to. Any other discussion on this item?
No.
All those in favor of 382? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Motion carries 4-2. Can I have a motion for agenda item 381, please? It's moved.
Second.
Carol Seahoff, Leslie Fritz. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, Madam President, I do have a point of discussion. Few points. So the first point being that the Board of Education back in June of 2025 passed a resolution to start the search for a permanent assistant superintendent for finance and instruction. Unfortunately, that was overturned. I'm not getting into that further, but it was overturned. We had our current person that was with us, who unfortunately left. But the point I would like to make is that if that process that I had initiated had finished and gone and run its course, we very well may not be in this situation. We very well may have a permanent person in this district that may want to grow with us. And we certainly were not in a time crunch. We were not in budget season. I would even say it was opportune time, and I'm disappointed that that happened.
Any other comments or discussion on this item?
Oh, yes,
Go ahead.
my second point. There's nothing against the individual that's applying. I think we all know him very well. But the issue I have is more of respect for the process. Respect for the process that board members sitting here put in place. A process that we wanted a first round of interviews, which included members of the community, stakeholders. And then a second round of interviews with others, assistant superintendents. And then for that to pan out and then take a recommendation from the superintendent. That's the process. That's the checks and balances that this board put in place. And I'm not prepared to bypass that.
Any other comments on this?
Yes. For the record, the superintendent did make a recommendation of Mr. Snyder, who served in the capacity of interim assistant superintendent for finance and operations. Mr. Snyder was fired, then he was rehired. And then in the middle of the hiring process, when he had surpassed the hiring committee with round one, the board decided to reopen the hiring process. So the process has been disrupted. It did not have to be disrupted. Amityville was in possession of a high quality assistant superintendent who was taking the district forward, who understood finances, operations, and administration. I am sorry that he is no longer with us, and I am sorry that our district is in this dire need to have to fill this position with expediency.
Madam President, I'd like to comment on that. The process was initially disrupted in July of 2025 when the process was in place to hire a full-time assistant superintendent of finance. That's when it was disrupted.
Any other comments on this? All those in favor of agenda item 3A3? Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-2. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3A4, please?
No. Second.
Carol Seal was first, Leslie Kratz is second, any discussion on all, just one number. All those in favor of agenda item 3A4, please? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Motion carries 4-0. 4-2, sorry, 4-2. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3A5, please?
Second.
Karen is first, Ron is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Can I have a motion to re-enter back into executive session? Motion. Executive second. Then we're going back into executive session for advice of counsel.
What about public comments on the
There's no public comments on this agenda.
Why not? The board could vote on it.
There's no public comment tonight.
Board
Thank
can
you
vote on
for
it.
coming out. There's no public comments.
The board could vote on it.
There's no public comments at this point in time. Thank you.
The board could vote on
Well,
it.
how about, before we close it, would the board entertain a
The
motion?
board would
To have-
like to do open, no, we're not gonna entertain it. You know why? Because we have the agenda.
That's a board vote. That's not no single trustee.
Excuse
It's a board vote.
There is no open comments tonight.
You're
Thank you very
one
much.
trustee.
Okay, thank you. You can go now.
Wait.
Vote out.
This is the board meeting, okay?
Yeah, we're going to executive session.
There are a lot of-
We're going into executive session, right?
I don't do that.
We made a motion.
Well, I made a motion to go into executive session.
I would like to introduce an intervening motion, and that would be to open up public comment for 10 minutes.
All those in favor of addressing this intervening motion to go to have public comments?
Aye.
I.
No, no.
It's on.